Hey there and welcome. Good morning to you. Let's make sure we have audio this morning. Sorry about that yesterday. I did go in and edit the recording yesterday, so it should start on time if you're watching on LinkedIn itself. YouTube, you still have to scroll for those first few minutes. I didn't realize the mic was on, and I did restart. Full link resume renovation lecture you can watch from yesterday. Today, we're going to talk about LinkedIn and how you take that single sheet of resume that really elevates and positions your career glory. And how do we take that short telling that really makes them jump out of their chair? How do we take that to LinkedIn and transform it into this three-dimensional sales brochure all about us that naturally drives the reader to a singular conclusion that, my gosh, if I hire this person, work with this person, best business decision I'll make today. So that's today's lecture on LinkedIn. Tomorrow, because this is a whole week series, tomorrow is interview intervention. All the secrets recruiters teach their candidates to beat the other candidates, I'm going to teach them to you. And we're going to wrap up this week with Friday, a very special session after resume, after LinkedIn and career branding, after interviewing. Friday, we're going to end all on effective job search. What is really a job search and how do you get to that decision maker and book your own interview without getting screened? That'll be Friday, all week long, 10 a.m. Join in wherever you can. If you can't join in at 10, you can also watch the replay, which will be out there for you. Let's see if I can get my remote here to work because it's a lot nicer if the remote works. Oh, there we go. Just needed a little plug and play. All right. So again, welcome. This is where you're going to learn to take back control about your career story. Now, today we're going to talk about LinkedIn. I'm going to give you a lot of different ideas. I'm going to sound like I'm telling you what to do. Don't let somebody else think for yourself. I live at Grand Street, FDR, which means I get into Chinatown pretty early in the morning sometimes. And I'm like most other New Yorkers, I got a million things on my mind. Lead, follow, get out of the way. I got to get somewhere. And I look up and suddenly I see this guy walking down the street with an entire hog up on his shoulder. And I'm like, wow, you can see some amazing things in Chinatown, 8 o'clock in the morning. I highly recommend a visit. So yes, that hog caught my attention, but this was on his t-shirt. Don't let somebody else think for yourself. We have to think about this. We have to think about taking control. We have to think about taking in all the advice and then aligning the right elements that are for us and moving those forward. Job search is a sales process. Actually, it's worse than that. It's two things we don't like combined together. It's a sales process and it's a dating process, both of which cause us tremendous anguish, or at least for most of us. Let me get a little bit of a sip of coffee here. Trying new lighting today. We'll see how that works. This is all part of continuing to take control of the discussion. We control their first impression of us with the resume, but then we control that deeper understanding of our career story and why it's so valuable. Now, in case you missed any of what I said about this week, you can watch any of these on replay once they do broadcast. Yesterday's is available right over on my LinkedIn right now. You can just rewatch it. It should start correctly on time. Today's is building your career brand with LinkedIn and really how to use that system to secure your interviews and your job offer. Tomorrow will be all the secrets, as you see, for the interview intervention session. And then Friday, all about supercharging your job search. Interview intervention, very, very important. I hope you tune in tomorrow because it makes a really big difference when you understand you're not there to answer questions. I'm there to use the device of the Q&A to answer questions, but really it's to position and sell myself the entire time because I'm a product. I'm a product that has to be positioned and have to elbow in and negotiate room on that supermarket shelf, the supermarket of quality hires they'd like to hire. So let's get deep into today. This is building your career brand with LinkedIn and how to use it for your job search. Or, I think there's an or coming up here. Well, it's not coming up here. It's maybe coming up a little later. We'll save that one. So another way to think about LinkedIn, yes, we're there to present our professional capabilities and credentials and accomplishments, everything else. But we're three-dimensional human beings, 360-degree human beings, real people that have real interests and real ticks. Not only what makes you tick, but what ticks do you have? We all have some ticks. I'm a little OCD, sure, but it's how you channel it as a tool. So How are you interesting? What makes you different? What makes you tick? What drives you? What's your passions? That may be part of your career story, or that may be a separate item for your career story that still needs a little tiny bit of spotlight. Can't overwhelm the career story, but it does need to be there, because oftentimes this is why I hire you. Don't mishear me. I'm not going to hire anybody that I know believe to be capable and qualified, just not hiring them. But assuming everybody here is capable and qualified that I'm talking to, I'm going to hire the people that I'm interested in, that I understand, I get somehow. And that's why we want to know this other part of who you are. And again, it's continuing to take control of the discussion about how people think about you. And this is all leading to really influencing them to choose you as the right individual, which is really tomorrow's lecture. Now, for clarity's sake, resume is about catching interest, piquing interest, the essence and value of your career on a single sheet of paper. This is not a biography, a summary, a laundry list of everything you've ever accomplished. It's none of those things. Simply the nugget, diamond, ruby, emerald, drop of perfume, those elements that are so precious, they make the cut for your story, and they set the listener up or the reader up for wanting to hear and know more about you. LinkedIn, of course, it's the de facto social networking website for our work life, very much like Facebook. I'm sure behind the scenes, they're probably suing their pants off each other. It's really the same thing. But one is about career, and one is about, I don't know what that's about, a lot of chatter. Sure, I'm over there. I post some stuff myself, but not very much. So LinkedIn becomes the place to center our professional shingle out there for the world to see and understand why we're different, why we're better than our competitors. But it's a few other things than just that. It's this communications, research, marketing, and advertising platform. Now, a business person thinks of LinkedIn this way automatically. Of course. But as an individual, you have a career brand to manage forevermore. You really must think of LinkedIn as this communications, research, marketing, and advertising platform for your own self and your career brand. When you begin to think that way, you'll do very, very different things. Now, after this lecture, not included in this week's lectures, but coming up very soon, or you can watch it over on my website, SelfRecruiter, or on the YouTube channel if you'd like to see an older version. But the part 2 to today's lectures, consider this LinkedIn part 1. Part 2 is once you really have a great LinkedIn profile, what do you do with it? What do you do with it is part 2, which is called Career Evolution, Preparing for Your Career's Next Leap with Social Media Marketing. And that's about harnessing this great new showcase for yourself as a sales brochure and getting it in front of just the right people in your industry and all those companies you want to work for. And that lecture teaches you exactly how to drop your sales brochure right in front of the right person. So we're going to hint on a lot of that stuff today, but most of that detail will be in that lecture coming up probably in the next week or two. So here's a little bit of a view, there it is, of your network. All right, it's a 3-level network. So you see me in the corner, happy guy, connected to 2 other happy people. We're all a happy group. They're my connections. But no matter what my connections do to their settings, every one of their connections are also in John's pool. And no matter what those folks do to their settings, every one of their connections are also in John's pool. John gets a 3-level pool just like everybody. They used to talk a lot about this. They don't talk a lot about it anymore. I'm not quite sure why. But this is a very, very valuable influence pool. Every time I share something, there's millions of people in this network if I have even just a few connections. And suddenly I can influence all these people and how they think about me and how they might consider me for some opportunity in their organization. Now, if you haven't seen me before, John Crant, author, career coach, and speaker, resume and LinkedIn guru as well. So if you are suffering really the way most individuals in their career are suffering, they're doing really great work, and then they have a really terrible career story across the resume and LinkedIn profile. They really don't know how to take the proper credit to elevate what they delivered, so they're seen as that shining star that has to be hired for this new opportunity someplace else. If you're struggling with that, and most of it is because you're so emotionally close to your story, you can't really see it in a fresh way. You can't see it in a different way. I care deeply, but I'm not emotionally connected to your story. Oh, I can see your story in all sorts of different ways that are absolutely letter true. We just have to know what to leave in and what to leave out. And good time for me to remind folks, I did grow up Catholic, so I know all about negotiating sin. There's no sin of omission here, either on the resume or the LinkedIn profile. is sin of commission. Every single thing must be letter true, but you can leave out any part of the story you might like to leave out. Now, some other things that will help you along the way, certainly in my book, check out Amazon, check out my website, it'll help you. It's a great roadmap that will get you through almost any situation, including if they give you the wrong offer. Now what? Here's how you renegotiate it. It's all there, including call strategy, everything's in there. LinkedIn lecture, well, we're doing it today, but I recommend you review this lecture several times. Really, why don't you use it as a start and stop tutorial so that really you can improve your LinkedIn profile iteratively until it gets to the very best sales brochure for you. Now, some other assets that will help you over my LinkedIn profile, there's some articles that will help avoiding the biggest mistake in job search, or how your resume doesn't become resume roadkill. Little piggyback onto yesterday's topic and piggyback onto Friday's topic, 5 keys to supercharging your job search. Really goes back to this. Don't let somebody else think for yourself. You have to absorb it all and make the right decisions. This is about taking your brand, whatever you establish as your brand, and that stake in the sand. There's my territory. There's my brand. And now we have to take that into the digital world, which at a minimum means LinkedIn. If we're in creative in any way, shape, or form, I don't know how that doesn't include Instagram in some way, shape, or form, but there may be 2 or 3 other platforms. You can probably use 2, 3 platforms effectively without wasting a lot of time if you plot your course strategically and use the right assets. Now, why does social media matter? Look around to the world and we see all sorts of reasons why it's so important, why it messes things up and why it can help clarify things. So the biggest reason it matters is small changes change perception. And social media is a great place to change that perception. It's where the people are. You can leverage that conversation about you, leverage those connections. If you can get people to start talking about you, it's like starting a wildfire that just goes right across the valley, just up like that. Look at that second one from the bottom there. That's what it's really about. Proper, effective use of social media, which in my view is 2 minutes per day. Watch the Career Evolution lecture. That will walk you through how to put together a plan that you execute in 2 minutes a day. 2 minutes a day, I can do about 6 shares in social media across the entire day. That's a very, very effective use of 2 minutes. And that's how I stay on top of the mind of all the people that are tangentially connected to me. Even if I seemingly have almost no contact, it seems like they're in connection with me. They're aware of my story, of my latest success, or whatever that might be, a deliverable. Now, why will you get hired? There's only 2 reasons. These 2 reasons will sound like they don't make sense. Chemistry, number 1, confidence, number 2, above all other things. I didn't even talk about qualifications. Okay, so let's back up. I wouldn't consider anybody that I didn't think was qualified. Therefore, those folks are, if you're not qualified, you're not even in the discussion. Of all the folks that I deem qualified, number 1 reason I'm going to choose someone is chemistry. Above all other things. I can teach so many other things. What about part number 5? They look a little weak on part number 5. Yeah, then their experience there is a little bit weak, but oh my gosh, they're a great fit chemistry-wise for the team that I have in place. They'll get up to speed on number 5. Yeah, I'm confident. Let's move forward. Chemistry can't be taught. Oh, I can teach you skills to try to create chemistry. That's not real. Those are skills, like an actor. You need real chemistry. So remember, it's a date. You better know all about them. I know you're so excited to tell them all about me. Me. Ever been on a date with Mr. Me? Me. Well, me. You think there's going to be a second date with Mr. Me? I don't really think so. Not unless we're going to the 4 Seasons or someplace I'm really dying to go. It's not going to happen. So I know you're dying to talk about yourself, and we'll spend a lot of time prepping you tomorrow about interviews, but you have to know all about them. That's the chemistry piece. You cross the room to go introduce yourself to some person. They want to, what was it? Was it my hair? Was it my eyes? And we have to tell them as part of the building chemistry story. It's also exuding confidence, reaching out to them and talking to them. So we have to think about these 2 items because yes, you got to be capable and qualified, but the chemistry and confidence, that's where the interesting and tick piece comes in. That's why I want to know what your background is. That's why I'm generally looking for people like me. So I get you. You know why? Because if I hire you, I'm going to spend more time with you than my loved ones, probably more time with either my loved ones, yeah, in my waking life. So that's why I want to like you. So don't forget this piece about why you're interesting and what makes you tick, even if it doesn't have something to do with your work life. Now, as an example, I use Instagram as part of my broad social media use. And if you look at my Instagram, you'll see, well, you're seeing some of it right now. You're going to see nothing about what I do professionally. And yet it's a drop-down menu on my website. When you go look, you can get to Instagram from my website. Why is this here? What is all of this stuff? It's John hiking up the Hudson Valley, or last couple there, we're almost dying out in the California desert at 108 degrees in August when I shouldn't have been hiking in the Painted Canyon. Only 2 people there that day, and myself and my hiking partner. And spent the last hour overheated, out of control, heartbeat 180 beats per minute the entire time. Didn't think I was going to make it. Really. I thought I'm like, wow, it's all going to end here, which it does for many people if you make a bad choice. And we made a wrong turn up on the top of the plateau, really right before this picture. Right before this picture, I'm like, oh, look at this picture. And then I get to the end and I realize there is no way down. I took a wrong turn that added 2 extra miles in the 108-degree sun. Got in very much trouble. Now, I know that pulled you deep into that story, but Instagram here is to let you know what makes John tick, what drives him, where's his energy come from, what else besides his professional work is he involved in. Sorry, I got to get a tissue here. And we have to think about all those things, because every one of them is maybe the reason why they engage you or choose not to engage you. And again, small changes change perception. We have to think all of that. This is a paradigm shift, not a little bit of paint, not a little bit of wallpaper. We're going to break down the walls of your LinkedIn profile and really start over. Now, piggybacking on tomorrow's topic, it's really our job to teach them how to select us as the very best individual. And our LinkedIn profile can be a huge piece of that evidence argument about us, about why we're the best. So mistake people make, and I talked a little bit about this yesterday, is we try to be cookie cutter perfect. No, cookie cutter, I'm just perfect. Are you perfect? You're perfect? Okay, I'll take number 2. I'll pay you less. No, you don't want less? Okay, I'll take number 3, number 5. Doesn't really matter to me, because you're all cookie cutter, perfect, interchangeable, lowest common denominator of value. You have to somehow achieve the cookie cutter perfect and also be different, exceptional, step out of line, and really let that say something special for you that separates you from the rest. This is all part of our personal branding. Now, on the resume, again, it was about catching or piquing that interest. On LinkedIn, it's going to be about closing the deal. They're excited about me, but they want to know more. They want to know more than the essence and value. They want to know a little bit more of that detail. That's where LinkedIn becomes this 3-dimensional sales brochure that drives them to that singular conclusion. Wow, get this person in here, get them on the phone. Maybe I have to have them on my team. Then also, we should talk back to yesterday's resume lecture about how your information, contact information, should be on the resume. It's a single line at the very top with your LinkedIn address on the left. Holding the resume, not quite ready. Click the LinkedIn, close the deal with the rest of the story. Or easiest to get to, my phone number on the right. 2 things easiest to get to. Check out that resume renovation lecture. It'll help you a lot. Now, even on LinkedIn, if you haven't worked remotely, we still have to convey that we can be effective remotely. The world is changing. Even if the company is doing something on site with all of its staff right now, they may go hybrid. They may go remote at some point. They may want to hire a workforce that has capabilities beyond what they're doing. So you may have to think about how to convey that you're effective at a distance. I've done conference calls, or I've done work with vendors or managers offsite or team members offsite. All things that say, yep, I can be effective even though we're not necessarily staying right next to each other. LinkedIn is about networking, which is really the second part you see here. It's about leveraging your connections to make things easier. Traditional networking, I'd meet a job seeker and they'd be like, oh, I'm going to a networking event tonight. And they'd sound just like that. I'm like, wow, sounds like you're going to take some really bad tasting medicine. I'm like, yeah, I have to go network. Oh. Well, occasionally I get invited to networking things. I give a lot of talks and I know all about networking. Does that mean John likes networking? No, not really. In reality, no matter what you see here, I'm shy and introverted, no matter what you see. That's just under under the skin. So do you think that kind of person likes to go network? No. Am I good at it? Oh, I'm very good at it. It's simply technique. You have to understand when you go to network, the reason it doesn't work for you is you go there to sell yourself. Oh, I have to go there to sell myself. Well, yes, a little bit, but you're there to be the most interested person in the room. Oh, no, what brought you here today? No, how'd you get into that? No, what's it like for that company? Oh my gosh, now how long did you do that? Now, out of curiosity, where'd you come from before that? And I just got a lot of information out of that one little exchange that could help John a lot in the future charting his job search or career. Imagine I do that with everyone standing around me. Oh yeah, Jack, have you met Jill? Jill, what brought you here today? Oh, that's so interesting. Eventually, they're all going to run out of oxygen and go, well, what about you, John? I'm like, finally, don't tell your story too early. They're not listening. They're thinking of, well, I can't wait to tell my story. Find out all of their story. Let them run out of oxygen. Let them eventually go, well, what about you? Oh, oh, what I do is so interesting. Yes. You know why it's so interesting? I just said it was so interesting. You have to package your elevator pitch for networking so it works. That's why traditional networking doesn't work very effective for most of us. Most of us aren't very good at all that stuff. It's the usual customer expected that we fail at. And we have to really approach networking in a very different way, a more strategic way. And it's a numbers game. We have to get out of this rut of just a few people in the room that may not even be the right ones. That leaves us in a very unhappy place. And what we have to do is change all of that equation of diminishing returns simply by changing the rules that you didn't agree to in the first place. I know I checked off some little tiny little list of text when I signed up for something. I read all that stuff too, just like the little credit card statements, little tiny micro-sized print. You read all that stuff too, right? Yeah. Me too. I looked at every bit of it before I went forward. What we're talking about is unconventional thinking, this creative interpretation, these moments of clarity, these light bulb moments. Let's start with one right now. Who do you think you should network with? Whom's going to be a good person to do this with, to connect with? Let's just give you the answer right now. Everybody. I mean, I don't care if you're in janitorial services. I don't care if you're in India, Russia, China. None of it matters, because your connection itself, near and dear to my heart, but it doesn't matter at all. Near and dear to my heart, but they don't really matter. It's about those 2 or 3 connections behind every connection that you own forever. If I could be connected to every person on this planet, I absolutely would be. It's about sitting on the largest pot of gold of data possible so that you can then drill down into that data to make your job search much, much easier. Think of all the places that you can network, and you have to start carrying business cards, waiting in line at the movies, wherever you are. Start those conversations, listen to things going on, listen to the person in the airline seat next to you. Yep, absolutely. I pick up clients on almost every flight I go on. I do not dress like this. In fact, I'm dressed much more similar to how I was earlier this morning. I was out on the waterfront doing cardio, and I'm out there in running tights and 5-finger shoes and t-shirt. And if I showed up here this way, I don't think you'd listen to my advice. Well, I grew up in an era where they told you to dress like this, getting on an airplane. But gosh, as a kid, didn't I fight that every chance? And when I grew up, I never accepted that. And so I'm much closer to this morning's outfit when I get on an airplane. No one's looking for advice from John. And I tend to sit next to someone. I get one of the seats and there's 2 open, and people tend to sit there, and somewhere in the flight, they tend to strike up a conversation. I don't do it. I'm shy and introvert. Eventually they strike up the conversation, and people can't help it. It pours out if you let it pour out and don't interrupt it. And then eventually they go, well, what about you? And now that they know you, they feel some connection, even though they're dressed shabbily on the airplane. They suddenly go, they're listening to what you do for your clients and who you work with. And suddenly, 2 weeks after that, the person's hiring you for their husband, type thing. So networking works, but you have to do it like breathing. It has to be organic. That does not mean you have to enjoy it. I don't enjoy it, but I do it. Treat it like a game if it's stressful. That's what I do. Now, I'm going to show you 2 techniques. Then we're going to show you how to maximize your profiles as a selling brochure. These 2 techniques I used every day as a recruiter. Now, if you don't know the rest of my background, 7 or 8 years as an outside headhunter recruiter, 3 different disciplines. 2 of those I did as a national market. Simply means I never met anybody. Every single thing was over the telephone. Lots of placements. Then I did local market Manhattan. You got to get out and meet everybody. I'm like, why? I'm so good over the phone. And so I used them all that time. Then of course I was a VP over the 100 office recruiting chain before I departed about 10, 12 years ago, where I really now work one-on-one with clients, really helping each client elevate their career story to the correct level, not beyond where it's supposed to be, but to the level that they delivered, to the value that they should be getting. So as a recruiter, I use these techniques every single day. This first one will help you build a statistically perfect list of 30 companies that would hire you tomorrow. This is what a good recruiter does. If you've ever worked with a recruiter, and when I'm speaking in person in front of audiences, this is still live, but I'm speaking in person in front of audiences, I always like to ask people, oh, have you worked with a recruiter? Anybody like recruiters? Because I know what the audience is going to go. There's a few people that like a good recruiter or 2 that place them. The rest of them are like, recruiters, useless. Like real estate salespeople. Sorry if you're a real estate salesperson listening. I don't personally mean it, but it's how they treat us. And so I get it though, because most recruiters aren't very good. They pick up whatever they can find. They literally throw it against the wall to see what sticks to make a placement. So they throw a lot of garbage, is the nicest way to say it, everywhere, and see what sticks to the wall. And so that's not a very good way to do it. Now, I worked for one of the very good recruiting firms that does it the right way, and there's not very many of them. And so I was very lucky to be trained the right way. I have to go into the competitor. I have to find the superstar. I have to lure them out. It's a glorified dating process. I should have gone millionaire matchmaker. It's the same thing. It's the same function. So you can do this for yourself by simply putting together this list where everybody is interested in you. The only thing we don't know, by the way, is do they have an opening? Oh, that's an unknown. There's no way for you to have a knowledge about whether they really have an opening unless you have a personal spy inside that company. You can't go by the job posting because 50% of all job postings are not real. That's a different lecture. We'll talk about that. So I can't just go by job postings. If I have an internal spy, I know there's an opening. Otherwise, I have no idea. So I put together a statistical list of 30 companies that would hire me, and then I just go out and knock on that door proverbially. This is called a 1 back, 1 forward technique. It's very, very easy. So I'm going to go in and search for people just like me in some way, shape, or form. Not every way, shape, or form, some way, shape, or form. So let's imagine I'm a Coca-Cola quality manager. And well, I was yesterday. Now I got the pink slip and now I'm out and I'm looking for something new. So I'm going to go in and look for people that are Coca-Cola quality managers, or actually used to be, that have now made 1 step forward. And I'm going to collect all those people together. And if I don't get enough people doing it for Coke, I could look at Pepsi. I could look at all other soda manufacturers. You get the idea. And I'm going to collect together. This is the real homework. I'm going to collect together 30 of them. And now I'm going to look at the 1 back, the 1 employer before, and the 1 employer forward from when we were identical. Both employers would hire me. I was identical here. The employer before would hire me for the current role. The new employer would hire me. You now have multiple names. You collect all of these, look at the 1 backs, 1 forward, start making a list. Very quickly, you have a list of 30 companies. Now, maybe you throw out a few duplicates, you throw out a few you don't like, but you'll end up with 25 to 30 of these companies, all statistically perfect to hire you. That is the right list of companies to go after. That's the list of companies to go after and introduce yourself. Now, different technique, and then we're going to get to the profiles. Different technique. This is a 1, 2, 3 forward technique. This is really about if you'd like to, I'd like to reinvent my career. I'm so done with furniture. I'm so done with furniture. How do I reinvent my career and do something else? So done with technology. How do I do something else? Whatever you'd like to do differently. This is it. Or we just got out of school and I go, how do I find a career? So I have a real example for this one to show you because it's a little bit harder to think about. This is about not reinventing the wheel when you don't understand what the wheel is in the first place. It would take you a long time to reinvent that wheel. Plus, it's already been invented. So let's learn from whoever invented it. So I'm going to go search for people that are just like me in some way, shape, or form. Not every way, shape, or form. Some way, shape, or form. And then I'm going to search really hard, even harder this time, to find people that made 3 job moves forward, because I'm trying to learn from each of them. Yes, I'm going to collect them all together. I start looking at all of these companies and I start to begin to see what I like. Now, as an example of how this really works, let me talk you through something I did with one of my clients. I had a gal call me up from Atlanta, and she says, I don't know if I can find a career. I just don't know how to find one of these things. I'm like, well, send me your stuff. Let's take a look. And I took a look, and she's had 3 or 4 jobs just out of school, really 3 or 4, quick jobs, and can't really find her footing, find a career. I don't know how to find one of those career things. I'm like, well, I know. I have a technique. Let's use this one. Now, those 3 or 4 jobs really didn't build any value. A little miscellaneous, nothing. There's nothing really here. Let's go back to your original asset, which was her degree. She went to Clark Atlanta University, and she studied mass media. So we went to Clark Atlanta University, and we pulled up all the people that studied mass media, all within the same time frame as her, all that were magically 3, 4, 5 years out of school, same distance as her, same asset. What did these people do with their asset? And so we look around at the titles, and let me just make this a little larger. I can go small. We looked around at the titles, go, oh, what do you like? What's of interest to you? And it's like, oh gosh, I'd love to be events. I'd like to work at events. It's like, oh, events at Warner Brothers. Oh my gosh, that sounds so interesting to me. Something like that might be really, I'd love to be a membership director. Recruiter. I'd like to help people. I'm like, well, come back to that one. Trish here, this membership director for the Chamber of Commerce, this nonprofit. How did she do it? Same amount of time out of school. How did she do it? What do you think her first job was? Membership associate. And the second job, membership manager. And voila, 3 steps in, she's membership director. Now, here's my client over on the right, Tahita. Never even heard of this track of member services. Didn't even know what this was. It's like, I said, well, let's go get you this job. Obviously, the first job is going to be a member services job. Let's go after that. It's like, well, I don't even know what that is. Well, I don't know what that is either, but they're going to love you. They seem to love this kind of background. Let's go after it. And she finds herself at the Georgia Pharmacy Association on her first step of her career ladder. And of course, I have to update this story. I've been telling it for a while. And she's made 2 more moves up to manager of member services and database, and then finally up to director of membership operations. Full career track from a phone call, having no idea of which way to go. There's a lot that you can do with a little bit of coaching, a little bit of conversation. But we have to understand where this product, we have to understand that people have to be interested. We have to have some idea of how we think about our product. And then we have to take that to LinkedIn and build a showcase. So part 2 for today is really how these small changes change reality by building a phenomenal LinkedIn profile that demonstrates not only are we cookie cutter perfect, but we're also different, exceptional, special somehow. Now, as we navigate over to my LinkedIn profile, I want you to ignore my content more or less, but I want you to see how I utilize space to tell story, which is about influence. So here I'm doing an event that was I'm not even in the picture, but it was a Morgan Stanley event. So I posted that. I was doing one of my lectures. So I posted that and got some pretty nice views. I was doing an online boot camp. I'm working hard to try to get that thing online live all the time, but the backend infrastructure isn't quite ready. But here I was doing a live version of it a couple of years ago, and someone caught me giving the lecture, and my father certainly would have loved that pose. Catholic deacon, I saw him in that pose endlessly, giving some great talks. He was a great speaker. So I put that out there. Here I am up at WHCR, Voice of Harlem Radio. You realize all of these shares begin to influence how people think of you. So what would you begin to put? Now, these are all about me because I'm a public speaker, which is very, very easy for me to do. But for you, it's much more of let them look over your shoulder. What's he reading, doing, sharing, attending? That's all about this industry that shows his passion. Of course, I post some different articles and everything else. Here, I posted somebody else's content of my content. It's actually the radio show host posted all the author's books he had on that month. And I'm like, oh, let me repost a little bit of piggybacking his post of my post. Running out the door to another lecture, had to post another image. And I'm like, I can't post the same darn picture every time. That doesn't really work. And at the library, someone was in the front row of my lectures, and they took this picture after like 90 minutes. I'm sweaty, I'm greasy. and of course, I look at the picture and all I can see is, where's my hair? Why is my nose so big? Why am I so greasy? And suddenly out of nowhere, 1,500 views. This is an example of, I'm an individual that exerts a lot of branding control, and full disclosure, my other half's a creative director, so it's a lot easier for me that way. A lot I've learned through that way. But in this case, a good lesson is it's okay also to break your brand a little bit and be a human being. Being a real human being sells, so don't be afraid to be that person. Now, when we do brand our career, we're generally talking about LinkedIn, but in today's world, we're also talking about Twitter or Threads, whichever one we're using, as a secondary channel. I'm a big believer that you should be there, because I can go to Twitter as an example, or X, which I really am not a fan of calling it that. But if we go to X or Twitter, give me any position, any level, give me a few minutes to think about it. I can come up with 4, 5, or 6 words to find not just the capable, not just the qualified, but the best of the best of the best. The handful at the top, 4, 5, 6 words. All I have to do is imagine, what would the very best person share? Oh, probably a best practices technical white paper on their function with commentary. The best person certainly would. Probably some of the 2 or 3 key issues going on in their industry, probably shared something about that. Maybe even something about a key player within the industry. And I go search for those few things, and boom, just from a little bit of a Twitter search, I can pull up things. So I'm a big fan of putting your LinkedIn there, putting your Twitter there, letting your content flow across multiple platforms, not being afraid of how you present. You know, all of these pictures of John are not really attractive in John's mind, but that's not the point. The point is, use the engaging picture that gets people to look. We're human beings. We're 3-dimensional. It is what it is. Now, as I build out my profile, all of my content background that I developed yesterday in my resume renovation lecture, in that 90-minute deep dive interview session with myself, those 8 or 9 pages of notes, I filter them through this lens. Of all those elements, what rises to convince people that it will be the best business decision they make if they hire me? And that means I'm going to focus on these type of things as I go into LinkedIn. Now, let's go into LinkedIn here, and I'm going to come back a little bit bigger. I don't think you need to see that so large. Okay, and let's get this switched so my remote works. There we go. Now, we have to start by understanding how we look to other people. Remember the 25, maybe I talked about it yesterday, not today, but the biggest way to use LinkedIn once you build the profile is the profile is built. So fast forward to the end of the lecture, and you've already iteratively built the right version. Now what I want to do is to go for every single job that I'm after and somehow surround that job by picking 25 to 30 people, up the food chain, down, all the way down to admin level, very strategic reasoning, left and right into another surrounding department. 25 to 30 people I'd probably interface with every day in that role. Okay. So they're also feeling the pain of me not being in that role. That's another reason. Plus, if they see someone of my quality, they might hand my information over to the decision maker in case they're too busy and don't see it for some reason. But it all starts with, how do I look when I show up as having looked at them? This is what it looks like. If you're these 2 LinkedIn members at the bottom, I don't even know why they're here. There's no purpose to privacy on LinkedIn. This is about your public professional shingle for the world as an advertising vehicle. Jonathan here. I don't know if you're a founder and owner, but if you're a founder and owner and would like to be hired, you need to take off founder and owner. We don't hire founders and owners. You know why? Because they don't listen to us. We can't tell them what to do. They have their own ideas. Get out of your own way and change your title to principal, which has all of the same benefit and none of that negative baggage. Oh, that person that takes responsibility, person that will deliver for me, person that I can tell what to do and will listen to me. Principal, ego out of the way. Jonathan also, look at his headshot. I can tell you he does not work in the fashion or glam industry. Therefore, this glam shot is not the right shot. Deborah here, on the other hand, I see good energy in this picture. I get a good sense that this person would not be difficult to work with. Textiles, lighting, fashion, interiors. Thank goodness. Finally, we have a focus. I wonder what Deborah does in textiles, lighting, fashion, interiors. I mean, is she designing the fabrics? Is she getting the coffee? Is she answering the phone? I have no idea what she's doing. Is she in sales? I really have no idea. Brad here, on the other hand, boy, looks really sharp. Corporate affairs, communications, global reputation management, government relations, crisis comms. Oh, look, I can contact that guy. Full disclosure, one of my clients, which is why they look correct and are presented correctly for the role. You have to embody whatever it is. I can't show up here comfortable. I have to show up in the suit that I don't really like wearing. Although I can tell you that cardio is paying off. It's getting just a little bit looser. It needs to get a little bit looser. I gained a little too much over the summer. So our profiles are the window at our world. If we were in retail, which would be a bad time to be in retail, but if you're in retail, how do you get people into the store? It's by what you put in that window. What are you going to put in your window? How are you interesting? What makes you tick? What draws people into your story? So let's take you through the whole setup. We're going to dissect my profile. So just think about how I'm utilizing the space. Replace it with your own content. First impressions matter. You've got to have a banner. I see so many people really at the top of their career, and really, you have a placeholder banner, a placeholder graphic that's automatic. You've done nothing for your branding. Okay. You don't have to be in the banner. I'm a public speaker. Very easy for me to be in the banner. But you do have to present. You have to put something that works with your profile shot that's not distracting. So it needs to support the profile shot without distracting away from it. Let's talk about that profile shot. Mine is a 3/4 shot. Oh, I wish I was looking at camera. That's actually a few years ago, I keep my hair cut so short, I can just keep using the same picture. Oh, but maybe I start having to dye the sides a little bit. Happens. But that picture was taken at City Hall here in New York City, 2:30 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. A couple friends getting married. I'm like, sure, with my schedule, I can go. That's joy over my friends getting married. The photographer never stopped us, never posed us, just kept shooting and got this organic picture of me positioned against the pillars in the background. Nobody in the shot, even though there were hundreds of people in the room. I'm like, oh, love this guy. The whole wedding spread belongs in Vanity Fair. I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy's talented. Look at my picture. I love it. Now, I didn't have to pay for it, but I have given his name out an awful lot. Now, the real thing about this, I can get away with the 3/4 shot. You really need to be looking at camera. I'm a public speaker. I can get away with it. It's commentary almost on self as a public speaker, but type over top of your picture, not if you'd like to be hired. That creates a barrier. Oh my gosh, John thinks a lot of himself. Oh, type over his picture. He's so special. That's my job, is to elevate that as a career coach and a career advisor. I have to drink that Kool-Aid and become comfortable with that. Once you've built the expertise and you own it, why shouldn't I be comfortable with it? But if I wanted to be hired, the people, if I was going to go for an in-house job, and I'm pretty sure I can compete pretty well in the interview process, most of them would be like, oh, I don't know if we can fit in the room with John's head. There's a lot of ego on this guy. And that becomes a barrier. So no type if we're looking to be hired. Headline just below your name. This is where it all starts to go wrong. People misunderstand the use of this. It is not about the profile, which doesn't even make sense because it's right here at the top of the profile. What this is really about is when you start to do things. I start to connect with people. I start to join groups. I start to share content. I start to like other people's content. All of that causes a ping to the network. And with that ping goes your picture, goes your name, and goes this headline. This is not out to the 12,000 connections that I have. Yep, public speaker. I have a lot of connections. It's not out to those 12,000 connections I have. Those 12,000 people know John. It's out to the millions and millions of people in my 3-level network that have no clue who John Crant is. So if they see my shares showing up in their feed and somehow John piques their interest, why would they click through on my name to open my sales brochure? Because of my headline, author and career coach, resume, LinkedIn, career branding guru, featured speaker at New York Public Library, Department of Labor, CUNY, and many others, quoted in CNN Wall Street Journal. You get the idea. Oh, I can contact this guy. Would you like to be contacted? Put your email address in the headline. One of the only places LinkedIn does not promptly hide it from 99% of the people. That's their real business plan, is to hide your information and to try to make people pay for it. And I believe you need to make it public and out there. So worst or least you could do with this space is to put your current or last employer in title. I really doubt that is the most effective way to package yourself. You've got to succinctly package yourself so someone gets it. 500 plus connections. If you are less than 500 connections, you must get to 501. It's very easy to get to 501. Even from 0 connections, you can be at 501 in 4 days. I'll tell you about that as we go along. Let's go down a little bit. The about section, another way to tell people why you're interesting, why you're special. The banner image, the profile image draws them in, but it's the real story elements that are going to make things work. So all these things together will then lead them to your next marketing messages about you. As you do all of these things, it's about trial and error. You click the little blue pencil, you go in, you try something. How does it look? No, let me go back again and adjust it. And same thing with the banner. It's not one position of the banner. It's trying to figure out what conveys what I really want. How do I get that right energy? Now, the about section or summary section, this is very similar to those top few lines of the resume that I call the positioning title, essentially to tell them all about why you're special before they look at employer title, and make their own decision. So you have about 2,000 characters of space. You realize there's really no sentence structure other than that one quote. There's no paragraphs because no one's going to read a paragraph. All these media hits I could have put in much more succinctly. Oh, but then you wouldn't have really looked at it. You'd skip over it. Right now, you just zip down in the brain. The narrative stacks up in your brain. White space, incredibly important. So much space left. 3 screens full of space, really. There's so much space left. I put in a number of the topics that I speak about. But you realize I had to break them all up. If I put them in as a list, it'd be a block of text, and people skip over text. So I don't want to read. Oh, I hope there's pictures. Well, there are pictures, but read the content too. You have to absorb the content rather than read it. And yet, even with all that I'm telling you, you realize I rolled the dice on an entire paragraph out of my book in the closing pitch. I figured, well, I've either got them or I've lost them, got them or I've lost them. And then I even mentioned my full services, all of that stuff. Your events can all be featured. Whatever you're doing can be highlighted. It all shows up. So if someone's like looking over your shoulder, what's drawing John's interest this week? What's John up to? When you really get to the real resume part of the background, you'll realize, well, this doesn't look like a resume. Those things aren't effective for most people. So why would I make it look like a resume? I have to parse out the information into blocks of text that could be absorbed. Now, we're going to go through this a little bit fast, but you can spend time on my LinkedIn yourself. Look at how I use space, borrow the technique, swap out your content. So I have to break it up and group it for simplification. Then I might go back and add just a little tiny bit of all cap, just for some structural framework. A little bit of all cap, very, very good. Get them to keep reading. No all cap or too much all cap, not really going to read much at all. Here's a little bit of look at more traditional 2-line bullets and how those might look. And yes, those are absolutely hard returns on those 2 lines, so I can control how it visually looks. Excuse me. Now, as I get a little coffee here, take a look at this keyword block. Now, most people don't need a keyword block. But if you need a keyword block, this is how you do it. You simply go to the end of any listing. There's no spot for it. Go to the end of any listing, carriage return down a couple extra spaces, put in keywords, colon, run them all together. Now, you've had time to actually read this keyword block. I don't know if you did or didn't, but if you did, you might see Tony Robbins and Stephen Covey and Tori Johnson, 5 O'Clock Club, 92nd Street. Why? All these things John has absolutely nothing to do with. Like, why are they here? These are all things that you could search for to find someone like John, but you won't find John. These are not part of my organic story. So I had to bury these things in a keyword block so that if someone's searching for Tony Robbins or Anthony Robbins, because I never quite know how they're going to search him, John comes up right next to him because the name's right in my profile. You need a keyword block, or you need certain companies to be aware of you. Oh my gosh, that you've never worked for. Keyword block's a great way to do it. All of this work requires back and forth, trial and error. Doesn't look like I expect it. Let me go back and do it again. How do I make it clearer? This is how you get to the very, very best version. And then you have to make sure to include visual elements, whatever those visual elements are for you. These you can look at all on my profile yourself. We're not going to spend time on them today. As you go further back in my background, this is a technique I want you to be aware of. Here I am, the VP over the 100 office recruiting system. And you realize I threw a little sugar at my old employer. Now, actually, I have a very high opinion of them. I didn't like the way it ended right at the very end because they didn't like me departing. But short of that, the entire 7 years was actually really terrific. And I really like their ethics in general. And so they're a really good firm. And so this is a national recruiting firm, 100 plus offices. I really think there's probably about 80 or 70 right now. But when I was there was 100 plus offices, manufacturing, engineering, supply chain, logistics, and keyword block, really. It's really just a keyword block there that you realize. This is another way that imagine the storytelling. If you need help with your resume or your LinkedIn profile and you need someone that's really good at it and you were in manufacturing, engineering, supply chain, logistics, guess who would come right up based on how I told this story? So you want to think about this technique, and is there some advantage to you in using this technique? Here's a variation on the same technique. Now, this one could get you in trouble. This is much earlier, where I'm a recruiter and I shared all of my clients. These are all the clients I worked with. Now, there was a non-compete, but there was no like trade secrets agreement or anything like that. I had the right to disclose every one of these clients' names. I disclosed every one of these clients' names. And you can imagine if you work for any one of these companies and you need help with the resume or LinkedIn profile, guess who would come right up based on how I told the story. So don't be afraid to tell the story. Just make sure, check your non-competes, your disclosures, make sure that you disclose what you're allowed to disclose. Look just below this. Told you I would tell you how to get to 501 connections in 4 days. You can copy right out of my profile, paste it anywhere into your profile, invite me, all invites accepted, open networker, and Lion. Now, if you're at 0 or low connections, you're not at 501, you'd like to be at 501, so you're 500 plus, mover, shaker, finger on the pulse. You take invite me, put it in quotes, so you don't pull results that have invite and don't pull results that have me. You have results that have invite me with quotes. Suddenly, beyond a few error ones that are there, everyone is saying, just invite me, just invite me, just invite me. I run down the list, invite everybody with no thought. Go to the next one, grab it, all invites accepted, inside of quotes. Same thing, I'm going to run down the list, invite every single person, all invites accepted, no judgments, all invites accepted. I run down the list, open networker, same thing. Lion doesn't need the quotes, single word, and you'll get some that work at Food Lion, that's not the right one, or the Lion team, the real estate company, not the right one. Most of them are Lion high volume networkers that have a lot of connections. And if you get their second level and their second level, I mean, they personally could deliver millions of people to your 3-level network just from one connection. So very, very important to think about adding something like this. And that also goes back to, why are these people sending me connections? They don't even know me. It doesn't matter, except every single one of them. Even redoing my sister's profile a few years back, I'm going into to beef it up and lift it in case she wants to change careers at some point. And I realized, my gosh, you've got 65 requests to connect sitting here waiting. Well, yeah, I know. I don't know some of those people. I don't even like this one. I don't know why this one's after me. It's like, oh, we're so stuck in the past. We're going to be left behind, and we're going to become gasoline in someone's tank. We're going to be those dinosaurs that evolve into gasoline if we don't evolve ourselves. We have to leave that baggage of the past behind and connect with every single person. Publications module, use your publications module if you've been cited anywhere. If you haven't been cited anywhere and there's nothing to showcase there, you can write 3 or 4 really great articles that essentially act as pre-interview pieces. You could post those to LinkedIn and to a blog that you never have to visit ever again. And you connect the blog over to the publications module, and now you have those things showcased right on your profile. Another way to up it. Now, when I'm in person, I like to go, anybody volunteer? Anybody volunteer? And a few people will go with the hands. I'm like, oh, I'm not interested. I was interested, but then I realized it was volunteer work. You know what today is? Volunteering. There's no pay here. This is volunteering. So I guarantee you this is real work. I don't use the volunteer module for myself nor my clients because we have a dismissive cultural bias. It's like, we're so interested until, oh, it's volunteer. It wasn't real. I guarantee it's real. So put your volunteer work and any other community involvement, any other contributions to society under organizations module, all of the same benefit, none of the negative baggage. Imagine how wonderful that is. Oh, look, Grace Institute. I love that stuff. Oh, look, here's another example of that same technique. I got invited for a talk at the NYU Wasserman Center, Career Center at NYU. And I'm like, oh, sure. I always like to try new things. And we're going to have a roundtable discussion. And so they sent me all the information. I'm prepping in advance. I'm reaching out to connect to Jessica and John Ladinsky and Vincent. And suddenly John's pops up. And I realize, oh my gosh, John Ladinsky has so many more connections than me. And I'm jealous. Well, I'm shy and introverted, but I'm very competitive. I want to win, even though I'm shy. Doesn't make sense. But I'm thinking something different. I don't want to have more connections than John Ladinsky? I want all of John Ladinsky's connections because whatever connections aren't mine, I want those. That's what I want. And so by spreading a little moonlight, by sharing a little credit, by spreading around the wealth of the deliverable value, anytime someone searches for Jessica or John or Vincent, guess who comes up right next to them? Anybody searches for Washington Center, guess who comes up right next to them? Think about the storytelling technique and what you have to do to make yours much more effective. Skills endorsement module, there's really no limit now, or not that I've found. It used to have a limit of 50. Now it's well beyond that. You need to put in every single skill that you've touched or had exposure to. This is not about being an expert. No one's an expert at 50 or more things. This is about, I have experience with it. Some of them I'm an expert at, but we don't know which ones. All of this information you put in will be truncated and condensed in ways that make it more palatable to the reader, to the visitor. When they want to know more, they can dig really deep and find all about you. When they just want that overview, they get to see the overview as well. And all of this really changes everything for you and makes your LinkedIn profile something that they hover over and fall into, because there's so much more detail and content than is ever maybe listed on the resume itself, which is just a cursory telling of why you're very, very special. And they need to take a closer look. Written recommendations, perfect world, 4, 5, 6 would be perfect. I think I have 52, 54, something like that up in there. Not a single edit, by the way, and that's a secret. Do not request edits. Do not write your recommendations for yourself to give to other people to post for you. It doesn't work. Sure, I could write something for you, John. Could you just write something? I'll post it. No, but you can write as little. Here's the instruction. You can write as little or as much as you like. Whatever you, here's the word. Whatever you genuinely feel. And I'm sure it'll be fine. And I am sure it'll be fine because it cannot go live until John approves it. And I'm not going to ask for an edit. Doesn't matter if someone made a mistake. It doesn't matter if the grammar's all wrong. You start reading my written recommendations, and besides some impressive recommendations, your head is likely going to want to explode looking at the grammar, the typos, all sorts of stuff that's all over these. It doesn't matter. That actually makes them more genuine. So don't polish people's words. Let them speak organically. It's very, very effective. Join a lot of groups. Every group you join expands your network dramatically. There's a SelfRecruiter group. I love that group. You should join that group. There's a lot of great things. But join all the right groups for your industry, for the companies you're interested in, for the background you've built, for the experience that you have, for other things of interest in the future. All of this is to build an influence pool. So when you share things, not only could they land on the desktop of that 3-level network that you have, but they can land on the desktop of any one of those group members that you belong to. Follow some influencers. Look at that. I'm following Tony Robbins, mostly so I can give him a little push off stage. Get a little long in the tooth. We have to make some room out here. Get to the 500 plus connections like I showed. Be that mover and shaker. Have your finger on the pulse. You know, when your competitor has 60, 80 connections and you've got 500 plus, it's a huge, huge difference. Just like I talked about earlier, just go up here and pop in invite me, or all invites accepted, or open network, or Lion, and all that stuff is going to give you list after list after list that you just have to run down and accept. Wherever you are in your process to build your best version of your career story on LinkedIn, take your first step and the next step and the next step. This is iterative to get to the very best version. Now, if you're struggling like most are with that poor storytelling, the things that we're so close to we can't fix ourselves, reach out and I'd be happy to work with you. All of my stuff is over on SelfRecruiter.com. Just check it out. And if you need to talk beforehand, send me a quick message. We'll set up a time to talk. As we close for the day, I want to leave you with this idea of what I believe job search really is, now that you have a good idea of what LinkedIn is. To me, it's reversing the idea that you see out there in the world. I'm going to create a job search plan with actual companies on it, not simply chase down job postings. So I'm going to put together, the first thing is to put together that list of 30 companies. I know it sounds like a lot. 30 companies statistically perfect to hire me. And I gave you the technique to do that earlier. I have to think like a detective. Oh, it's not really possible. But if it was, how can I do this? Devise the steps needed, work backward like a detective, figure out, well, what would I have to do? How would I get to, this is how I do it. Discover the decision makers. We build the org chart. looking at LinkedIn. You know what the decision maker's job is? To object to you. You don't have this background. You don't have this. You don't have that. Let's see what he says about that. Well, actually, you're right. I don't have that. But what I bring is something very different that's more valuable. Because my job to overcome that objection, get the meeting, dazzle them, have them either give you the job or create the job for you. That's how you're going to have a very, very different outcome. Now, let's give you this piece, getting to the decision maker. I thought that was the last close. I realized there was one more. Unified search box, every single page. How we're going to reverse search any company. Just put in the company name. This example, Informatica, big database middleware company. Used to make a lot of placements with them years ago. Don't click on the drop-down menu. Simply hit enter, and you get this nice secondary sorting process you see. Then I can go, well, wait a minute, wait. As long as I'm here, are there other companies I haven't thought of? Probably. So they've hidden the company when I have to go find it. And I'm like, well, let's show me the companies. 34,000 companies. Wow. Well, once you get past all the Informatica ones, who are all the rest of these companies on this list? Well, I can tell you. This used to be one of my fields too. They're all system integrators. They either install or resell Informatica software. If I am right to work for Informatica, I'm statistically right to work for a great number of these companies on this list. This is another amazing method to pull companies statistically perfect. You could literally put in every company you've worked for one at a time and see who else would like to hire you. But then I have to find real people. So then I go, okay, well, wait a minute, show me the people. All right, 2.5 million. Oh, cold and in the ground before I get through that list. I'm going to have to put my thinking cap on. Also, probably where I should tell you, I only use the free version of LinkedIn. So you can do all this on the free version. I don't need to see everybody in the world. Let's go in, show me just the US, and the ones that currently work for Informatica, not like 3 years ago work for Informatica. And what do I get? Somewhere, 1,615 results. Now how about I can't look at 1,600 people either. Oh, I've got it. You know why? Because this is brainstorming. This is problem solving. I think it's a VP that's going to hire me. I go into the search filters, just simple VP. Look at that. Really US, really Informatica. What do I get? 75 VPs. A lot of chiefs in that company. Let's see. I think it's a director maybe that's going to hire. Maybe it's a director, really US, really Informatica. 228 directors. I'm going the wrong way. I have it. You know why I have it? From problem solving, by working through it. It's a sales director that I'm really looking for. And as long as I'm looking at location, I'm really looking for New York City, even on the free version, really Informatica, right down to 3. Now I'm looking for 3 to 5 individuals. And along this same process, I would have been picking out my 25 to 30 people, but 3 is not as good as 5. If we went back and maybe there's a sales VP also, same in New York City. Oh, there's 2 more. Now I have 5. But Nick here frustrates me because when I go to connect with Nick, it says send InMail. Oh, you know what InMail is? Spam. The literal definition of spam, it is paid email. Do not send it. So, but I still want to connect with Nick. So if I load his profile and I click the ... oh, they've hidden the connect button right there over behind the bushes. They can't hide it very far because the business is connecting. Connect with Nick. And this problem's over. By the way, this is a message you write one time ever, copy and paste forevermore. I like to connect with other professionals in our niche. And I'd love to add you to my professional network on LinkedIn. Capture all of this in forms. On these forms, which are available right on my blog, on my SelfRecruiter website, just look for the job search management system. You can download all of these. These will guide you through your process. You will collect information that you can use both now and even in your future career. That brings today to a close. Thank you guys for joining in. We're just a little bit over the hour. Sorry about that. Take your first step wherever you are. If you need help, reach out. Join in tomorrow for intervention at 10 a.m. Friday, we'll be supercharging your job search also at 10 a.m. And we'll speak to you guys soon. Take care. Thanks for joining in. Bye-bye.